Hello, this is Todd Luck, and this is a review of Man-at-Arms from Masters of the Universe Origins. So this is a retro-inspired line with modern articulation that's currently at Walmart, and if you get it off the shelf or when Walmart.com has it in stock, these figures are $14.95. And as we're taking a look at this retro-inspired packaging for Man-at-Arms, let's talk about the character for a second. So originally, Man-at-Arms, the original figure, did not have a mustache. This changed when Filmation made the Masters of the Universe cartoon. They gave him a mustache, and that was because of the voice actor Alan Oppenheimer had a mustache. He is best known for doing the voice of Skeletor, but he did other voices on the show, including Merman, Cringer, and Battle Cat, and Man-at-Arms. And Man-at-Arms was the closest to his natural voice. So they gave the character, the animators gave the character a mustache so he more resembled Alan Oppenheimer. And I'm glad they decided to do that to Man-at-Arms because, of course, Skeletor would look really funny with a mustache. Man-at-Arms is also a unique character in the fact that Man-at-Arms in the 80s was revealed to be a title given to the character and not his given name. With all the other characters in the 80s, they treated him like the name on the packaging, Skeletor or Evil Lyn or Beastman, was their actual given name. With Man-at-Arms in the Filmation cartoon, we discovered his real name was Duncan and his title was Man-at-Arms. And so that stuck, that ended up in a live action movie, that ended up in the 2000X cartoon, and so that just became canon for the character. So he was kind of the first Masters of the Universe character to have a given name and then, a different name that you would call him on the packaging. And obviously that carried over into Masters of the Universe Origins, which would then kind of do that with all the characters. But back in the 80s, that made him unique. And so without further ado, let's open Duncan up and take a look at Man-at-Arms. And so here Man-at-Arms is out of the packaging. One thing I will note that this is probably the most successful I've been at leaving this intact, and it's not really going to be too practical to put him back in here, I don't think. These are really just easier to remove the blister bubble all together and just keep the card back, which is basically what I'm going to do with these. But anyway, this is what you get with him. You get the same mini comic as all the other figures in this wave. There will be more mini comics coming with future waves and future deluxe figures, but right now this is the only one. And then there is this pile of armor pieces and his weapon that we will be applying right now. So I'm actually shooting this video while I'm doing this, and so we're going to change plans a little bit because as I was about to put on the armor, I found this. He's got a joint here, it's not turning. Same thing on the other arm, and I've rotated them all the way around. I've made sure it's not a ball joint that is just turned the wrong way or something. This appears to be a fused joint, so I'm going to try the hairdryer trick. So I'm just going to hold the hairdryer very close to this joint and put it on low for about 30 seconds. And let's see if that worked. Yep, we do have movement now. Yep, that unfused a joint, so we're going to do that on the other one. So now we can bend both arms. So this is the first one I've had with fused joints, and so again, the hairdryer trick works like a charm. This is very, very common on all your modern figures. So congratulations, Masters of the Universe. You are now a modern action figure line that occasionally has figures with fused joints. So let me go ahead and compare him to the original while I'm talking about the sculpt, because it's kind of hard to talk about him without comparing him to the original. So as you can see, the head sculpts are similar, but this one is definitely a little more realistic. This one is more scrunched up. It's definitely not the Filmation face, and it's definitely not this one. It definitely feels a little more compressed here. And I think that is so he can do this number, so his articulation would not be hindered by the size of his head. However, it just makes it look kind of odd compared to the original. So I wish there could have been a better solution. As you can see, the colors are brighter, but other than that, it is a very, very faithful rendering of this figure from the original. But the cool trick here is that Man-at-Arms has always had this brace or armor piece on his arm, and obviously that would hinder the articulation if it was done as one solid piece. So what they've done here is they've actually made it two armor pieces, so you can actually flex his arm, or straighten it, depending on how you want to display him. But that is really cool, and that gives you a lot more posable options for the figure. And of course, the armor piece on his leg doesn't hinder his articulation at all. And so it is a very nice sculpt, very nice coloring. His weapon's a little small, but it does fit in his hand quite well. I don't have my original Man-at-Arms mace, so I can't compare it. I suspect it was bigger, but that may just be nostalgia and fuzzy memory talking. But other than that, it is a very, very nice rendering. Notice the change with the helmet, though. And actually, though, I think this is actually original intention. I'm just now seeing it right now on camera, but I see texture here. And yeah, that looks like that should be hair, but it's not colored as hair. So they actually added in some extra coloring that looks like it was intended on the old figure, but didn't make it in. I never knew that. I always thought the helmet went down to here. This is really cool. I discover all kinds of really cool stuff about the old figures doing these videos. And here's a compatibility test between the new and old figure on the armor and weapons. As you can see, the new figure can wear the old figure's armor, though this arm piece is a little bit loose fitting and doesn't quite look right, but the rest of it fits pretty well. And then the old figure can wear the new figure's armor and hold the weapon just fine. And so let's take a look at the articulation real quick. The head can go all the way down, so you can actually cover up the mustache if you want. You can look around side to side. You can do exorcist if you want. Let's see. Arm goes out, arm goes around, and of course can bend at the elbow, and the wrist can rotate around and bend as well. Same thing on the other arm. Twist at the waist. The legs can do the splits. The legs can go out, bend at the knee. He can rotate and bend his feet. And then this boot cut is rotatable if you ever wanted a rotatable boot. And one of the really cool things about this line is that you can break down the figures into all their composite parts and mix and match the parts between the figures. And that is really cool. And I think it's going to be a really big draw for this particular figure. And so in a lot of versions of Masters of the Universe, including Filmation, this is also the same uniform that the Royal Guard would wear. And so there's a lot of potential for army building and customization to create your own characters. And, this works pretty well with human heads. But Eternia is a diverse planet with a lot of different species, so you don't necessarily need a human head either. Hopefully we'll be getting some official Royal Guards that we can army build and, create new soldiers out of in this line. I haven't seen any solicited, but it's just such an obvious idea. And the new articulation in these figures that we didn't have in the old vintage ones allows you to get a lot more posing. And that's really true of all the figures. They can interact with ways they just couldn't back in the 80s. You can even have Man-at-Arms hug his daughter after a bad day. And you can even do a little bit of death and dismemberment with the parts that you can take out.
I finally got Man-at-Arms, but now I'll never know why his voice sounded so much like mine.
So overall, I would say this is a great upgrade for Man-at-Arms from the original figure. I love the articulation, the interchangeable parts. The only thing is the head sculpt is a little wonky to me, and the armor pieces like on the arm and sometimes the back will keep coming off. And I don't think that's going to be a problem for collectors because, you know, we're just going to pose him and he's going to sit there and it'll be fine. But for kids playing with it, I can see that maybe being an issue and maybe being a source for frustration. You know, that's the only real gripe I have other than the head sculpt. But otherwise, this is a fantastic figure from a fantastic line that I do highly recommend. Got some more videos coming, so like and subscribe for more videos. And until next time, good journey.